Every time you explain yourself, you surrender territory you didn't know you owned. Machiavelli understood what most never will. Justification is the language of the powerless. The moment you feel compelled to defend your decisions, your actions, your silence, you've already lost. This isn't about communication. It's about control. And if you don't understand the difference, you're already being controlled. Right now, someone is testing you, questioning your choices, waiting to see if you'll break and explain yourself. And what you do next will determine whether they see you as an equal or a target. Most people operate under a fatal assumption that clarity creates respect. They believe explaining their reasoning will make others understand them better, trust them more, value them higher. This is a trap. A carefully constructed social trap that keeps you subordinate without you even realizing it. What actually happens is this. The more you explain, the more you expose the mechanics of your thinking. And once someone sees how you think, they know how to manipulate you. They know which buttons to push, which fears to exploit, which insecurities to target. Explanation is an invitation to negotiation. And negotiation only happens between unequals, one person trying to convince, the other deciding whether to grant approval. Think about it. You don't see kings explaining their decrees. Judges don't justify verdicts to defendants. Leaders don't defend their vision to followers who already doubt them. CEOs don't explain strategy to entry-level employees. Generals don't justify tactics to soldiers. Parents don't negotiate bedtime with toddlers. Because the act of explanation itself communicates uncertainty. It says, "I'm not sure you'll accept this unless I convince you." It says, "Your approval matters more than my decision." It says, "I need you to validate me." And the moment you need validation, you've transferred power. You've made them the authority and yourself the supplicant. This happens in every area of life. Relationships, work, friendships, family dynamics. Someone questions why you did something, and instead of holding your ground, you scramble to justify it. You list reasons. You provide context. You explain your thought process in excruciating detail. And with every word, you dig yourself deeper. Because they're not listening to understand. They're listening to find weaknesses in your reasoning. Gaps they can exploit. Contradictions they can highlight. Emotional vulnerabilities they can leverage later. Your explanation becomes their ammunition. Machiavelli wrote that it is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. But there's a deeper principle embedded in that statement. Fear and love both require distance. Explanation destroys distance. When you explain, you humanize yourself. You reveal doubt, process, vulnerability. You become relatable. And relatable people are not respected. They are managed. They are tolerated, humored, controlled, but never truly respected. This is the first law of social dominance. Power exists in the space between action and understanding. The less people understand why you do what you do, the more they attribute to you. Intelligence, confidence, hidden knowledge, strategic depth. They assume you're operating on a level they can't access. And that assumption creates deference. Silence is not emptiness. It's a canvas on which others project their fears and assumptions. Let them wonder. Let them speculate. Let them fill the void with narratives that elevate you. Because the alternative, explaining everything, reduces you to their level of comprehension. And once you're at their level, you're no longer above them. The second law, justification, is a request for permission retroactively. When you explain a decision after making it, you're unconsciously asking if it was acceptable. You're opening the door for judgment, critique, revision. You're saying, "I made this choice, but I need you to agree it was the right one." And that need makes you weak. Strong decisions don't require defense. Weak ones can't survive without it. Think about the last time you made a decision you were truly confident in. Did you feel the need to explain it to everyone? Probably not. Now think about a decision you were uncertain about. How much time did you spend justifying it? That's the tell. Explanation reveals doubt. And doubt invites challenge. The third law. People respect what they cannot fully access. Mystery creates value. Transparency creates familiarity. And familiarity, as the saying goes, breeds contempt. This is why celebrities maintain distance. Why luxury brands don't explain their pricing. Why exclusive clubs don't justify their membership criteria. Scarcity, including scarcity of information, creates perceived value. You are not obligated to make others comfortable with your choices. Comfort is their responsibility. Yours is clarity of action. You decide. You act. You move forward. Their understanding is optional. Their approval is irrelevant. Their comfort is not your concern. Let's identify the patterns that destroy you socially. These are the behaviors you've been conditioned to see as polite, considerate, or respectful. But they're actually mechanisms of subordination. Pattern 1. Justifying your no. Someone asks you for something. You can't or won't do it. Instead of simply declining, you launch into reasons. I'm really busy right now, and I have this thing, and honestly I'm just overwhelmed. You know how it is? What you think you're doing. Softening the rejection. Being polite. Maintaining the relationship. What you're actually doing. Teaching them that your boundaries are negotiable. Because every reason you give is a variable they can attempt to change. Oh, you're busy? I can wait. You're overwhelmed? This will only take a minute. You have a thing? Can't you reschedule? Your justification became their leverage. Each reason you provided became a problem for them to solve, an objection for them to overcome. You turned your no into a negotiation. And negotiations have winners and losers. A powerful no requires no explanation. It simply is. I can't do that. That doesn't work for me. No, full stop. No reasons, no apologies, no room for debate. This feels uncomfortable at first. You'll feel rude, cold, unreasonable. That discomfort is your conditioning trying to keep you compliant. Push through it. Because on the other side of that discomfort is respect. Pattern 2. Defending your choices to people who didn't ask. You change jobs. You end a relationship. You move cities. And before anyone even questions it, you're explaining why. I know it seems sudden, but I've been thinking about this for a while, and the opportunity just made sense, and I really feel like it's the right move for me right now. This is preemptive submission. You're so afraid of judgment that you're prosecuting yourself before the trial even begins. You're anticipating criticism and trying to diffuse it before it arrives. But here's what you don't realize. By doing this, you're inviting the very judgment you're trying to avoid. Understand this. People who respect you don't need explanations. People who don't respect you won't accept them anyway. Your reasons will never be good enough for someone who's already decided you're wrong. They'll pick apart your logic, question your timing, suggest alternatives you should have considered. Not because they care about your well-being, but because your need for their approval gives them power over you. Strong people announce changes. Weak people defend them. I'm taking a new position. I've ended the relationship. I'm moving. Notice the difference? No justification. No appeal for understanding. Just information. Take it or leave it. Pattern 3. Filling silence with justification. Someone challenges you, questions your decision, looks at you with doubt, and you panic. The silence feels like accusation, so you rush to fill it with words. Reasons, evidence, proof. Well, actually, if you think about it, there are several factors that led to this, and when you consider the context. But silence is a test. It's a power move designed to make you uncomfortable enough to break. And by failing to hold it, you've announced that their doubt has authority over you. You've shown that their silent disapproval is enough to make you scramble for validation. The person who can sit comfortably in silence while others squirm holds the room. They understand that silence is not a void to be filled. It's a pressure to be applied. When someone questions you and you respond with calm silence, you're communicating something profound. Your doubt doesn't move me. Your approval doesn't define me. Your discomfort is not my emergency. That's power. Pattern 4. Apologizing for decisions that don't require apology. Sorry, but I can't make it. Sorry, I have to focus on this right now. Sorry, that's not going to work for me. Why are you apologizing? What did you do wrong? You made a choice that serves your interests. That's not a crime. It's not even rude. It's basic self-preservation. But you've been trained to apologize for taking up space, for having boundaries, for prioritizing yourself. Every unnecessary apology is a small surrender, a micro-submission that reinforces your position below them. Stop apologizing for existing on your own terms. Pattern 5. Seeking consensus before acting. Before making a decision, you poll everyone. You gather opinions. You try to get buy-in, not because you need their input, but because you need their permission. You're outsourcing your authority to a committee that has no stake in your outcomes. And when things go wrong, you'll have no one to blame but yourself, because you let others make your decisions. Leaders consult selectively. They gather information from trusted sources. But the final decision is theirs alone. And they don't explain it afterward. They own it, execute it, and deal with the consequences. That's the difference between someone who leads their life and someone who's led by others. Here's what most people don't understand about authority. It's not granted by competence. It's granted by perception. And perception is shaped not by what you say, but by what you don't. You can be the most knowledgeable person in the room, the most experienced, the most qualified. But if you communicate like someone seeking approval, you'll be treated like a subordinate. Conversely, you can be average in skill, but exceptional in presence, and you'll be treated like a leader. This is the uncomfortable truth. Social power is performative. It's about signals, not substance. Signal 1. Economy of words. Powerful people speak less. Not because they have less to say, but because they understand that scarcity creates value. When you explain everything, your words become noise. When you speak only what's necessary, every sentence carries weight. Watch how leaders communicate. Short statements, clear directives, no justification. We're moving forward with this. That won't work. This is the decision. Notice what's missing? The why, because the why is assumed. If you have to explain why you have authority, you don't. Authority is self-evident. It doesn't require proof. Now compare that to how most people communicate. So I was thinking, and I know this might sound crazy, but what if we tried this approach? I mean, I'm not sure it'll work, but I think it could be worth exploring, you know? Tentative, apologetic, seeking permission. Every qualifier weakens the message. Every hedge undermines the authority. If you want to be taken seriously, speak like someone who expects to be taken seriously. Signal 2. Comfort with misunderstanding. Weak people need to be understood. Strong people can tolerate being misunderstood because they know that clarity is not their responsibility. It's a privilege they grant selectively. If someone misinterprets your silence, your brevity, your refusal to explain, that's information about them, not you. It tells you they're used to access they haven't earned. It tells you they expect you to perform for their comfort. And when you refuse, they'll try to make you feel guilty, unreasonable, difficult. Let them. Their discomfort is not your problem. Your job is not to make everyone understand you. Your job is to act in alignment with your values and goals. If they get it, great. If they don't, irrelevant. Signal 3. Immunity to social pressure. Every time someone pressures you to explain yourself, they're testing your frame. Why won't you tell me? I deserve to know. You're being unreasonable. Everyone else explains themselves. Why can't you? These are not questions. They're power moves. Their attempts to establish that their need for information outweighs your right to privacy. And the moment you comply, you've confirmed their frame is stronger than yours. Your response should be calm, immovable, and final. I've made my decision. I'm not discussing this. That's not up for debate. No elaboration, no apology, no negotiation. And here's the critical part. You have to mean it. You can't say, I'm not discussing this, and then discuss it 5 minutes later when they push harder. That teaches them that your boundaries are performative, that if they apply enough pressure, you'll fold. Hold the line. Every single time. Signal 4. Selective transparency. Notice that none of this means you never explain anything to anyone. It means you're strategic about when, how, and to whom you explain. There are people in your life who've earned access to your reasoning. People you trust. People whose input you value. People who've proven they'll use that information to support you, not undermine you. Those people get explanations, context, vulnerability. Everyone else gets the decision. This is how you maintain authority while still having deep, meaningful relationships. You don't owe the world your inner workings. You owe them your integrity. There's a modern obsession with transparency, authenticity, vulnerability. Social media has convinced an entire generation that sharing everything is virtuous. That being an open book is somehow more honest, more real, more trustworthy. And while these qualities have their place, they are not tools of power. Transparency is a gift, not an obligation. When you give it freely to everyone, it loses value. Worse, it becomes a weapon against you. Cost 1. Predictability. The more people know about how you think, the easier you are to predict, and predictable people are controllable. If they know what bothers you, they can avoid or exploit it. If they know what you value, they can withhold or offer it strategically. If they know your process, they can interrupt or manipulate it. If they know your fears, they can weaponize them. Think about poker. Why do professional players wear sunglasses and maintain neutral expressions? Because any information you give your opponent can be used against you. Life is the same. Every time you explain your reasoning, you're showing your cards. You're revealing the algorithm that drives your decisions. And once someone has that algorithm, they can game it. Opacity is protection. It keeps people guessing. It prevents them from finding your pressure points. It maintains the asymmetry of information that keeps you advantaged. Cost 2. Loss of mystique. Mystique is not deception. It's strategic ambiguity. It's the difference between being an open book and being a locked vault that people assume contains treasure. When people don't fully understand you, they fill the gaps with their own projections, usually in your favor. They assume you're smarter, more strategic, more dangerous than you might actually be. They credit you with depths you may not possess. They attribute your silence to wisdom rather than uncertainty. Let them. Because the moment you explain everything, you remove the mystery. You become ordinary, fully known, completely accessible. And accessible things are not valued. This is why luxury brands don't explain their pricing. Why exclusive clubs don't justify their criteria. Why powerful people don't share their full strategy. Scarcity creates value, and information scarcity creates perceived depth. Cost 3. Invitation to judgment. Every explanation is an invitation for others to weigh in, to agree or disagree, to approve or criticize. And once you've invited that, you've made them a stakeholder in your decisions. You've given them a vote they were never entitled to. Think about it. When you explain why you did something, you're implicitly asking, was this okay? And by asking that question, you've positioned them as the judge and yourself as the defendant. Now they get to render a verdict. I see your point, but have you considered? I understand, but I think you should have. That makes sense. But what about? Every one of these responses is a challenge to your authority, and you invited it by explaining. Strong people make decisions and move. Weak people make decisions and then campaign for approval. Which one are you? Cost 4. Erosion of boundaries. When you explain yourself once, you set a precedent. Now they expect it every time. Your initial explanation becomes the baseline. And anything less feels like you're hiding something. You told me why last time. Why won't you tell me now? You used to be so open with me. What changed? What changed is that you realized explaining yourself was costing you power. But now you're in a trap. Because pulling back feels like a betrayal of the transparency you previously offered. This is why it's critical to establish boundaries early. Don't start by explaining everything and then try to walk it back. Start from a position of selective disclosure and maintain it. Cost 5. Emotional labor. Explaining yourself is exhausting. It requires you to constantly justify, defend, and rationalize your choices to people who may not even care about the truth. They just want to challenge you. Every explanation is emotional labor you're performing for someone else's comfort. And that labor drains you. It takes energy away from execution and redirects it toward performance. You end up spending more time defending your decisions than implementing them. That's not strategy. That's self-sabotage. Silence is not passive. It's an active choice. A weapon. A shield. But only if you know how to wield it. Most people fear silence. They experience it as emptiness, awkwardness, or hostility. So they fill it with words, explanations, nervous laughter, anything to break the tension. But that tension is exactly where power lives. Rule 1. Never explain what can be demonstrated. If your actions speak clearly, words are redundant. If your actions don't speak clearly, words won't help. Results are the only explanation that matters. Someone questions your approach? Show them the outcome. Someone doubts your capability? Demonstrate it. Someone challenges your decision? Let the consequences speak. Words are cheap. Outcomes are expensive. And expensive things command respect. When you rely on explanation instead of demonstration, you're asking people to trust your promises instead of your proof. And promises are easy to dismiss. Rule 2. Let others interpret your silence as strength. When you refuse to explain, people will create narratives. Most of those narratives will make you more powerful than you are. They don't explain because they don't need to. They're confident enough not to care what we think. They know something we don't. They're operating on a different level. All of these work in your favor. Because the story they tell themselves about your silence is almost always more impressive than the truth. Your actual reason for not explaining might be simple. You don't owe them an explanation. But they'll interpret it as strategic brilliance, hidden knowledge, unshakable confidence. And that interpretation elevates you without you having to do anything. Rule 3. Explanation is a gift, not a right. Some people deserve your reasoning. People you trust. People who've earned access. People whose input you value. But that's a small circle. Your partner. Your closest friends. Your trusted advisors. People who've proven their loyalty and discretion. Everyone else? They get the decision, not the process. And if they can't accept that, they've told you exactly where they belong outside your circle. This is not cruelty. It's clarity. You're not obligated to give everyone the same level of access to your inner world. Intimacy is earned. Trust is built. Access is granted. Not freely distributed to anyone who asks. Rule 4. Defend your time, not your choices. If someone demands an explanation, the issue isn't the explanation, it's the demand. They believe they have the right to your internal world. They don't. And every time you comply with that belief, you reinforce it. Instead of explaining why you made a choice, question why they think they're entitled to know. Not aggressively, not defensively, just calmly and directly. Why do you need to know? What would change if I explained? Does my reasoning affect you? Most of the time, they have no good answer. Because their demand wasn't about information. It was about control. They wanted to see if they could make you perform, if they could make you justify yourself. And by refusing, you've shown them they can't. Rule 5. Use silence to create space for others to reveal themselves. When you stay silent, people get uncomfortable. And in their discomfort, they talk. They fill the void. They explain themselves. They reveal their motivations, their insecurities, their strategies. This is an interrogation technique used by law enforcement and intelligence agencies. Ask a question, then shut up. The silence creates pressure, and under pressure, people crack. They say more than they intended. They expose more than they should. Meanwhile, you've given up nothing. You've learned everything you need to know just by staying quiet. Rule 6. Silence preserves optionality. The moment you explain your reasoning, you've committed to that reasoning. Now you're locked into that narrative. If circumstances change, if new information emerges, if you simply change your mind, you'll have to explain why your previous explanation no longer applies. You've created a burden for yourself. But if you never explained in the first place, you maintain complete freedom to pivot. You can change course without having to justify the change, because you never tied yourself to a specific rationale. This is strategic flexibility, and it's only possible when you resist the urge to explain everything. Ambiguity is uncomfortable. That's why most people avoid it. They want clear answers, defined positions, explicit reasoning, but discomfort is leverage. When you're ambiguous, you force others to fill in the blanks, and in doing so, they reveal themselves. Application 1. In negotiation, never show your full hand. Never explain your bottom line. Never justify your offer. The moment you do, you've capped your value. I can't go lower than this because my costs are X and my margin needs to be Y. Congratulations. You just told them exactly how much room you have to move. Now they know where to push. Instead, make your offer and stay silent. Let them wonder if there's flexibility. Let them question whether you're bluffing. Ambiguity keeps them guessing. Guessing keeps them engaged. Engagement keeps you in control. And often, they'll negotiate against themselves. They'll improve their offer just to test if you'll accept it without you having to say a word. Application 2. In conflict. When someone attacks you, they expect defense, justification, explanation. Give them nothing. A calm, unbothered silence is more destabilizing than any argument, because it communicates, your opinion doesn't move me. They'll escalate. They'll try to provoke a reaction. They'll accuse you of not caring, being cold, being unreasonable. Still, say nothing. Or if you must speak, keep it minimal. I hear you. Noted. Is there anything else? No defense. No counterattack. No emotional engagement. Just impenetrable calm. This drives aggressive people insane, because their entire strategy depends on getting a reaction from you. And when you don't give them one, they have nowhere to go. They're fighting a ghost. Application 3. In leadership. Leaders who explain every decision train their teams to question every decision. They create a culture where nothing moves without consensus, where every directive is up for debate. That's not leadership. That's committee management. Leaders who act with clarity, but without justification, train their teams to trust the process. We're doing this. This is the priority. This is non-negotiable. The team might not understand why. They might have questions. They might even disagree. But they execute, because they've learned that the leader's decisions are based on information and considerations they may not have access to. And that trust built through consistent, decisive action is more powerful than any explanation could be. Trust isn't built through transparency. It's built through consistency. Application 4. In social dynamics. When you're ambiguous about your intentions, availability, or interest, you become more intriguing. People are drawn to what they can't fully figure out. Someone asks what you're doing this weekend. Instead of giving them your full schedule, you say, I have some things planned. Vague, non-committal, slightly mysterious. Now they're curious. What things? With whom? Why won't you say? And that curiosity creates interest. Compare that to, oh, I'm probably just going to stay home, watch some Netflix, maybe clean my apartment. Nothing exciting, really. You've just made yourself completely uninteresting. Ambiguity creates intrigue. Intrigue creates value. Application 5. Impersonal boundaries. When someone asks something too personal, too soon, you don't owe them a detailed answer. Why did your last relationship end? That's a long story. Why did you leave your last job? It was time for a change. Why don't you talk to your family? It's complicated. These aren't evasions. They're boundaries. You're signaling that this information is not freely available. If they push, you hold firm. If they respect it, they've passed a test. Either way, you've maintained control over your narrative. Not all relationships are equal, and not all relationships deserve the same level of transparency. There's a hierarchy, and understanding it is critical. Tier 1. People who've earned nothing. Strangers, acquaintances, colleagues you don't trust. People who've shown they can't handle information responsibly. These people get decisions, not explanations. They get outcomes, not processes. They get information on a need-to-know basis. And most of the time, they don't need to know. Tier 2. People who've earned basic respect. Colleagues you work with regularly. Friends you're not particularly close to. Family members you maintain cordial relationships with. These people get context when it's relevant to them. If your decision affects them directly, they deserve to know how. But they don't get your full reasoning. They don't get your doubts. They don't get access to your decision-making process. They get the parts that concern them, nothing more. Tier 3. People who've earned trust. Close friends. Trusted mentors. Partners who've proven their loyalty. These people get explanations. Not because you owe them, but because you choose to share. Because their input might actually be valuable. Because they've demonstrated they'll use that information to support you, not undermine you. But even here, there are limits. You still don't explain everything. You still maintain some level of privacy. Because even the people closest to you don't need access to every corner of your mind. Tier 4. Yourself. This is the only person who deserves complete transparency. You need to know why you're making the choices you're making. You need to interrogate your own motivations. You need to be honest with yourself about your fears, your biases, your blind spots. But that internal clarity doesn't need to be externalized. You can be completely clear with yourself while remaining strategically ambiguous with others. In fact, that's the ideal state. Internal certainty. External mystery. Here's the truth most will never accept. You are not responsible for other people's understanding. You are responsible for your own clarity. There's a difference. Clarity means you know what you're doing and why. Understanding means they know. You need the first. You don't owe the second. The moment you internalize this, everything shifts. You stop performing. Stop defending. Stop shrinking yourself to fit into other people's frameworks of acceptability. You become immovable. And immovable people are not ignored. They're not dismissed. They're not tested endlessly. They're respected. Or avoided, but never controlled. Machiavelli knew this. He watched rulers fall because they needed to be loved, understood, validated. They explained their decisions to nobles who pretended to care, but were actually looking for weaknesses. They justified their actions to subjects who would never be satisfied anyway. They sought consensus from people who had no stake in their success. And they fell, not because they were incompetent, but because they gave away their power one explanation at a time. And he watched rulers rise because they were willing to be misunderstood, feared, enigmatic. They made decisions and executed them. They didn't campaign for approval. They didn't perform for the crowd. They acted in their interests and let others interpret it however they wanted. The ones who survived weren't the most moral. They were the most strategically opaque. They understood that power doesn't come from making people comfortable. It comes from making yourself unavailable to their judgment. This is the principle that separates those who lead from those who follow. Those who shape reality from those who react to it. Those who command respect from those who beg for it. You don't explain yourself to gain respect. You gain respect by not needing to explain yourself. So here's where you are now. You've been taught your whole life that communication is connection. That explanation is respect. That transparency is strength. And because of that, you've been giving away power in every interaction. Every time you justified a boundary. Every time you defended a choice to someone who had no right to question it. Every time you filled a silence because you couldn't stand the weight of someone's doubt. Every time you apologized for taking up space. Every time you sought consensus before acting. You handed them leverage. You taught them that your decisions are negotiable. That your boundaries are flexible. That your authority is conditional on their approval. And they learned. They learned that if they push hard enough, you'll fold. That if they question you enough, you'll scramble to justify yourself. That if they make you uncomfortable enough, you'll give them whatever they want just to relieve the tension. But now you know. Explanation is not clarity. It's surrender. Silence is not emptiness. It's authority. And the people who understand this, who can act decisively, speak economically, and remain unbothered by misunderstanding, those are the people who shape rooms, relationships, and outcomes. Everyone else is just reacting. The question is, which side are you on? Because the world will keep testing you. Keep demanding explanations. Keep pressuring you to justify your existence, your choices, your boundaries. And how you respond will determine whether you're respected or managed, whether you lead or follow, whether you hold power or keep giving it away. This isn't about being cold. It's about being strategic. This isn't about refusing to communicate. It's about communicating with purpose. This isn't about isolation. It's about selectivity. You can still have deep relationships. You can still be vulnerable. You can still be kind. But you do it on your terms, with people who've earned it, in ways that don't compromise your position. Machiavelli warned us centuries ago. He saw the pattern. He documented it. He tried to teach it. Most ignored him. They called him cynical, manipulative, immoral. But he wasn't teaching immorality. He was teaching reality. The reality that power operates by rules most people refuse to acknowledge. The reality that nice people finish last, not because the world is unfair, but because they're playing a different game than everyone else. The reality that respect is not given to those who deserve it, but to those who command it. And you command it not by explaining yourself, but by being so certain in your actions that explanation becomes unnecessary. Will you keep explaining yourself to people who will never be satisfied? Will you keep defending your choices to people who have no stake in your success? Will you keep apologizing for existing on your own terms? Or will you finally understand that your power lives in the space between action and explanation? That your authority comes from your willingness to be misunderstood? That your respect is earned not by making others comfortable, but by making yourself unavailable to their judgment? The choice is yours. But understand this. Every time you explain yourself when you don't have to, you're choosing subordination. Every time you justify a boundary, you're teaching people it's negotiable. Every time you seek approval before acting, you're giving someone else authority over your life. And that's not strategy. That's surrender. Machiavelli warned us. Now you've been warned too. What you do with that warning will determine everything. If you're ready to take these strategies beyond theory, check the pinned comment. The link I left there is the next step to becoming truly untouchable.